Hello all, welcome to MG Power Platform Solutions. This week we came back again with one more video tutorial on Power Apps as we have posted a notification based on the Power Apps collection. If you need to load more than 10,000 records and don't know how to load it into your Power Apps collections, I have got a solution for you. In today's video, I'm going to show you one of the best and most efficient ways to load more than 10,000 records under 4 seconds in your Power Apps. For that, we'll be using Power Automate, JSON parsing, and collections to overcome delegation limits in a smart way. If you're hitting performance limit issues, this video is definitely for you. Let's get started. Before jumping into Power Apps, let me show you something. Here is my SharePoint list where it has different type of columns, title, on behalf of NotifyDate, NotifyTime, reported by department, priority, business unit, and status. As it already contains more than 10,000 records. So if your SharePoint list contains more than 10,000 records, Power Apps alone cannot fetch all the records into Power Apps collection due to the delegation limitations. Power Apps can only retrieve 500 records and we can increase it up to 10,000 records. But beyond that, it won't load all the records directly. To process this, I will be using Power Automate Flow to retrieve all the records from SharePoint list. Then I will pass the data as a JSON back to the Power Apps and then parse it and store it in a collection. Now let me show you how to implement this solution step by step. This is my Power Automate flow. I have already designed this flow and this is the Power Apps screen and this is the Power Apps collection. So this is the Power Automate flow. In this Power Automate flow, I have taken the trigger when a Power Apps calls a flow, where in the Power Apps I have given the expression in that way it will call the Power Automate when you read out the data into the Power Apps collection. Next to the Power Apps trigger, take a compose action where in the compose action store the list name as well as the list fields of the SharePoint list that you wanted to load into your Power Apps collection. Here I have taken these fields. Take send an HTTP request to SharePoint action, provide site address and the method is get. In the URI, here I am getting the lowest ID of records from the SharePoint list. Suppose for example, if you are having 10,000 records, the lowest ID here will be 1. So it will get the lowest ID, that is 1, from this URI. And when you click on the advanced parameter, it will show headers. In the headers part, enter the key as accept and the value as application JSON and OData is equals to no meta. So for the highest ID as well, provide the site address, method as get method and the URI. And the URI here we will be selecting the ID and filter ID greater than from the top 1 and order by descending order. When we sort or order by descending order, the top ID will be 10,000. So it will retrieve the 10,000 ID record. In the same way, headers part and the application value part. So now we have lowest ID and highest ID from the SharePoint list records. Next to that, let me take compose action. In the compose action, I am storing an expression that will result in how many chunks of 5,000 records are needed. So for a batch, we'll be getting 5,000 records. So from this expression, we'll get to know how many chunks of that 5,000 records are needed. Let me give you an example like, so this is the expression. Here we are having value of the highest ID, that is 10,000, and this is the value of lowest ID, that is 1. So we are subtracting 10,000 minus 1, that is 4 nines will be there, and we are dividing that 99,999 with the 5,000. So the number of chunks will be more than 1, that is 2. This is the next. Take an initialize variable to calculate the threads. So I have named it as a threads and the type as an array. In the value section, I provided an expression. So this expression will create an array of numbers starting from the 0. The array length will be based on how many 5000 records batches are needed for this in an apply to each loop. The value will be passed into the for each loop. So here we will get two loops, that is 0 and 1, because we have 10,000 records, and the range will be 0 and 1. Next, add another compose action. In that compose action, I will be taking an expression. This expression calculates how many records the each thread should process. So let me explain this with an example. Suppose if you are having 10,000 records, for 10,000 records, the highest record will be 10,000 and the lowest record will be 0. The difference between highest and lowest will be 10,000. So that 10,000 records will be divided by this 10,000 records will be divided by the length of the threads. The length of the threads will be here I have explained in the previous action. The length of the threads will be produce array of variables, that is 2, 0 and 1. The length of the records will be divided by 2. So each thread will be 5000 items. And here we are adding 5000 plus 1, because if you are missing any item, so it will add one more item to it and process all the 5001 records. After that, add apply to each action. Inside the apply to each action, select an output from the previous steps. Here I have taken the threads of initialize variable value. Inside the initialize variable value, let me take another compose action. In the lowest ID, this is the expression where it calculates the starting ID for each batch when each time the flow runs. For example, for the first run, the flow will process 5000 items, so the starting ID will be 1. For the next run, when the flow runs for the second time, the starting ID will be 5001. Similarly, as for the highest ID, it will calculate the highest ID for each batch. For the first run, it will be 5000, and for the second run, it will be 10,000. Send an HTTP request to the SharePoint action. In that, provide site address and the method will be get method. Here we'll be passing whatever the values we have got from the previous actions into here in the URI, where provide the URI and replace it with your columns. Here after to the select, provide the outputs of list fields, which is from the first compose action, and then filter the ID it is greater than or equals to the lowest ID, this that is this low ID, and the ID less than equals to the outputs of the highest ID. And click on the advanced parameters, provide the headers. I will also provide this headers value on the expression in the YouTube description as well. Then add a select action where it will get all the rows URI based on the provided URI, and then we'll be mapping all the fields here to pass them into the Power Apps collection. So from the value of the previous action query SharePoint, we are mapping the values from the SharePoint list title, ID, on behalf of, and everything. We are mapping all the values here, and then before to apply to each action, I have added one more initialize variable action. In that initialize variable, I just named the variable and the type as string. Whatever the values we are getting from the select action, I was appending it to that array. So the name will be var array and the outputs of body of the select. Then outside of the apply to each loop, add a compose action that will replaces the square brackets with the count, where it will convert the string into JSON array that Power Automate can loop through. And then end of the flow, you can take respond to Power App or flow. Then let's come to the Power Apps. Here in the Power Apps, there is a screen. When you click on the reload button, And let me expand the formula this with the data table, that is parse JSON, retrieve data using flow.run. It will call a Power Automate flow and retrieve the data in a JSON format from the flow. This clear collect will clear any existing data in the collection and then collects new data in the collection, and this for all will loop through each record in the data. And these are the values I was mapping here, where id is equals to value, value dot id, title value. On behalf of all the records, I have mapped it here. And then I have set the seconds, that is in 4-second data loaded. In 4 seconds, when all the records have been loaded into the Power Apps collection, it will notify as data loaded here in 4 seconds. Let me run the app. So this is the empty collection here. When I click on the total count here will be 0, and when I reload the button, the Power Automate flow will run and load all the SharePoint list records here within a 4 second, that is data loaded here. You can see the notification data loaded in 4 seconds, and the total count will be 10,000 records. This is how you can load your bulk data from the SharePoint list to the Power Apps collection within few seconds. If this video helps you, like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.